Both the drop shadow and the basic feather effects were in earlier versions of InDesign. New in CS3 are a host of other special Photoshop-like effects that you can apply to any object. Let me show you where you can find them. First, I'll zoom in down on this object because it's easy to apply things to. Let me move it over a little bit. And now I'll select that group and go to the Effects pop-up menu, and I can choose any of these. Let's start with Bevel Emboss just because it's kind of fun. I'm not going to go through all these features, there's just too many of them, but I encourage you to go in here and just play around. Change the bevel type, change the size, the technique. Maybe we'll make this a sort of a chisel effect instead. There's all kinds of amazing effects you can do in here just by playing around. Let's also add a glow around this. We'll do an outer glow. I'll turn that effect on. And why don't I change the color by clicking on this little swatch here, and I'll pick my own color. I'll choose a CMYK color here, and maybe I'll make it a really nice orange kind of glow color here, and apply that. Now you can see that there's a little bit of glow coming around here. Let's boost that up by changing the opacity, and also make the size a little bit bigger. There we go. So now I have a bevel effect, I've got a glow effect. I'll show you another example. Let's scroll over here to the other page, and I'm going to apply an inner shadow. I'll use the direct select tool to select this white frame, and I'll apply an inner shadow here. I don't know why, but I really like the inner shadow effect. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, and I'll change the size a little bit as well, and boost always add a little bit of noise, make it a little bit more realistic, and now I've got a shadow inside that object. I think that's really cool. Click OK. If I decided that I didn't want that effect anymore, it's easy to get rid of them. Simply go back to the Effects pop-up menu, either in the Control panel or the Effects panel, and choose Clear Effects or Clear All Transparency. But in this case, I'm going to undo that with a Command-Z or Control-Z on Windows because I like it and I want to apply it to these other objects. In an earlier movie, we saw one way to copy an effect to another object, simply by going to the Effects panel and dragging the effects icon over onto the other object. Another way to do this would be to save the effect in an object style, which we'll look at later in the chapter on styles. And in the next movie, we'll focus on another feature that lets you copy all kinds of formatting, the Eyedropper tool. When you're laying out a document, you'll often find yourself needing to copy formatting from one place to another. One way to do that would be to use styles, like paragraph styles or object styles, and I'll be talking about those in a later chapter. But another, sometimes faster way is to use the Eyedropper tool. I'm going to jump to the first page of my document by pressing Option-Shift Page Up or Alt-Shift Page Up on Windows, and I'll select this object, and I'll zoom in a couple times with the Command plus or Control plus on Windows. Let's move this out of the way so we can see this better. Now, I want this color, the fill color, to match the background a little bit more. How would I do that? Well, I need to copy a color from the background using the Eyedropper tool. So I'll select that in the tool panel, and because the fill color is on top, the fill icon is on top, whatever color I click on will become the new fill color for that object. I clicked and the color gets placed immediately. Notice also that the cursor changed. It became black. It's a filled eyedropper, indicating that I can now click with this cursor on other objects to fill those objects with the same color. If I don't like that color, if I want to resample a new color, hold down the Option key or Alt on Windows, and it loads the clear cursor again. And now, as long as that key is being held down on the keyboard, I can click on all kinds of colors until I get just the color I want. That looks pretty good. Let go of the key, and it reloads that cursor again. Now the eyedropper is great because it's not just for fill colors or stroke colors, it's for formatting as well. Text formatting, effects, all kinds of stuff. For example, let me zoom out here a little bit and scroll over. What if I wanted this effect, these effects, the bevel and emboss and the little drop shadow, to be applied to this text down here? How would I do that? Well, I need to change the way the eyedropper works. And to do that, I'm going to double-click on the eyedropper tool in the tool panel, and it opens the Eyedropper Options dialog box. In this case, I don't want to copy the color and the font and all of that of this text. I simply want the effects. So I'm going to turn off all of these checkboxes. I'm just going to copy the object settings and especially the text effects. I'll click OK, and it reloads the eyedropper tool, and now I want to click on the frame itself. This is something that gets a little bit confusing with the eyedropper tool. When you start using the eyedropper tool, you need to be very, very careful about what you're clicking on. In this case, I'm clicking on the frame, not the text. I click on the frame, and first thing I notice is that it applied that effect to this object because I left that selected. You also have to be very careful about what you leave selected on your page when you use the eyedropper tool, because anything you click on will be applied to selected objects. Now I'm going to apply that effect to this text down here, and again, watch the cursor. The cursor tells you what's going to happen. Right now, I've got a cursor that has a little I-beam attached to it, and that I-beam means it's going to apply it to the text. In this case, I'm not trying to copy text formatting, so I don't want that. I want to move the cursor up until that little I-beam disappears, and now this cursor means that I'm going to apply the effect to this entire frame. Click, and I can see that the effect is applied. Come over here and click on this frame, and it applies the effect. And I could even come down here and apply the effect to this object down there. As long as that eyedropper is loaded with the effect, I could go anywhere in my document applying effects. Let's go to page 2. Shift page down goes to the next page in the document, and now I'm going to show you how you can copy text formatting. I'll double-click on the eyedropper tool, turn off the object settings, and in this case I'm going to turn on character and paragraph settings. I'll click OK, and I want to copy this formatting for this paragraph down to this paragraph down here. This is also supposed to be a little subhead. How would I do it? It's as easy as copying the other stuff. Simply click on the text that I want to copy, and look at that little cursor. The cursor has an I-beam on it, so I could click on this paragraph or click and drag over the text with the eyedropper cursor, and now it applies the formatting to that paragraph. You could copy formatting throughout an entire document like this. I'll hold down Option to pick up this new formatting. Option or Alt on Windows, click on that, and now come over here and copy over this, and it applies that paragraph and character formatting to that paragraph. The eyedropper tool is great for a quick formatting pickup from here to there, but honestly, if you need to apply a lot of formatting throughout a document, styles are a much better way to go. As I said, we'll explore those in a later chapter, but I do want to point out that there's one more way to apply formatting quickly throughout a whole document, and that's CS3's new ability to find and change object formatting. That's where we're going in the next movie. Working on designing or laying out a document, I don't want to be bothered by mind-numbing tasks. For example, can you imagine if this were, let's say, a 200-page document, and the art director or my client comes and said, "Hey, can you make all these black frames a dark green color?" This kind of thing would make me scream if I didn't have a fine change feature to do it for me. But I do, because new in CS3 is the ability to find and change object formatting, and it lives just where you'd expect, in the Find Change dialog box. If I go to the Edit menu, I can choose Find Change or press Command F or Control F on Windows. To see object formatting, I click on the Object button. How do I tell InDesign what to find? I can click on this button, or really anywhere in this whole area here, and it brings up this enormous dialog box, which is really overwhelming. But basically, this is all the different object formatting that you could possibly search for. In this case, it's really easy. I want to search for any object that has a fill of black. I'll click OK, and you can see that the Find Object Format field now says, find anything with a fill of a color of black. Now what am I going to change it to? I'll click in this field, and it brings up a very similar dialog box, but in this case I'm going to fill with a dark green color. I'll just pick this down at the bottom of the list, and notice that I could change all kinds of options in this dialog box. The text wrap, the transparency of this object. Why don't we give this an outer glow, just for the heck of it. I'll say turn on an outer glow for these objects, and I'm going to say make this have a, let's say a really bright outer glow color. Let's make it maybe a bright orange, and then I'll set the opacity to 100%. You need to dial in exactly the way you want this to look. And I'm going to make this maybe 1 pica wide, 10% spread, 5% noise. However you want this to look is fine. Click OK, and now you can see that all of that formatting shows up here in the field. And we can scroll through it to see what is going to be applied to all of these objects. The last thing you need to do before actually making the change is to set the scope of your find and change. And the scope could be just what's selected, or just this particular document, or even all the currently open documents. Just the documents that are open, not all the documents on your hard drive or something, but just all the documents that are open. In this case, I'm just going to choose this document. Now I can say, do I want to apply it to all frames? Do I want to search just text frames? You have a lot of control here on the scope. Do I want to change these on locked layers? Do I want to change it on hidden layers, on master pages or not? Again, lots of control about what you're changing. In this case, sure, I do want to change both document pages and master pages, so I'll turn that button on. Then, it's easy as clicking Find, or, since I'm pretty sure I've got it right, I'm just going to click Change All. It goes through the entire document, it searches all the pages in the document, it replaced 19 objects for me. You can imagine if this were a really long document, it might find hundreds of these and change them in just a split second. Click OK, click Done, and you can see now that all of those black frames got changed to green with an outer glow. I happen to know a bunch of the people who work on the InDesign engineering team, and they all say the same thing. Their aim is to take mind-numbing, painful tasks like this and make them easy and automated, so you can focus on what you do best, making great-looking pages. And this Find Change feature is a great example of how they are succeeding. Every object on your page is in a stack. And for the more technically minded among you, this is also called object's z-order. For example, each object has an x and y coordinate on the page and also a z-order, which describes which object is on top of which. I'm going to talk about how layers help you organize your objects in the next movie, but for now, let's just focus on how objects stack up on the one layer that every document has, layer 1. I'm going to move this text frame down on top of some of these other objects, and I'll zoom in and we'll be able to see, obviously, this text frame is on top of these other objects. It's on top of this picture, it's on top of this text frame, it's on top of the blue background, and so on. It's at the top of the stack. If I wanted to move it to the bottom of the stack, it's easy to do. Go to the Object menu, choose Arrange, and Send to Back. That moves it to the very bottom of the stack on this layer. Notice that it didn't go behind this blue background because that blue background, I happen to know, is on a master page. And the master page items are always at the back of the stack. They're always the bottom of the stack on each layer. Now let's say I want to move this object over here on top of this blue object. How would I do that? Again, Object, Arrange, and then I have a lot of controls. Bring to front, bring it all the way to the top. No, I don't want that. Or send to the back. No, that's not right. I can say bring forward or send backward. Or use the corresponding keyboard shortcuts. Command square bracket or on Windows Control square bracket. And if I simply say bring forward, it moves one step forward in the stack on top of that blue background. Note that because I have a transparency effect applied to this object, I can see through it to the text behind. Being aware of the stacking order on each layer is very important when you're laying out a document, and unfortunately there's no way to see all the objects on the layer as a list like you can in Illustrator's Layers panel. That would be very cool. InDesign does have a Layers panel though, and while it doesn't do everything that Illustrator's Layers panel does, it is very helpful when arranging your objects, and that's exactly what we're going to look at in the next movie.